This is the District 2 Sports Podcast with your hosts, Gregory, Devin, and Big G, your voice for local sports in Southern Virginia. You can listen to this episode and hundreds of others on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Give us a like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
They're not in my top 12. They're not in my top 12. I told y'all. They're not.
Big G got his teams in and they all lost last week. So,
how did you get that? I got two teams in and one of them lost.
I need to throw one more shout out. I got a shout out to my little guy over there on the left, little Dev.
The spreadsheet is back out, and it's back.
Oh, you have one for basketball?
I got one for basketball.
Yes.
Really? You're not for Spurs? Okay. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Whoa,
So now we're
man,
going hot now. It's going hot.
For anybody listening tonight, anybody paying attention, if y'all don't know, the mob is in the NFL.
Not a fan? Not a fan of the lo-fi?
That music was atrocious.
That was weak. I did not.
That was the first thing I wrote down. As soon as it started, I put, not crazy about this.
Wow. Man, I mean, it's just, I love watching that thing. Joe, I'm sorry you had to sit through that, but I love watching that.
That's impressive, guys. That's awesome.
I love it. Especially my favorite part, I say this every time, is Devin calling the fan base, our fan base, just not smart people. They can't read. They only do pictures.
They love pictures. Pictures.
The reason I said that is because I felt so disrespected. I put out, Gregory puts out a PowerPoint that literally has 2 words on it. I put 2 words and a picture of, like, I don't even, the team logo. I put out a whole spreadsheet that's got all their points per game, their offensive efficiency, all that stuff. Everybody hates it. It's just, it's one of those things where I just felt like I was being disrespected by the fan base. And I apologize for that.
Hey, you know what? I'm sitting here looking at something. Look how low budget the three of us are. Look at Joe sitting in front of that microphone, in-house microphone. I mean, don't it look good? I'm talking into my computer.
Oh man,
Joe, just watch. As soon as maybe in the next 5 minutes, this guy's gonna lose his internet connection here in his That's how we roll.
I'm using my new computer. I'm in the hotel. I'm okay right now. I got my phone. I got my phone right beside me just in case.
Just to mess with Big G, I'm just gonna start pulling hats off the back here.
Oh,
my friends over in Ringgold kind of hooked me up with that.
Oh man!
Goodness.
Wow.
Look at that.
sheesh.
This was this year for
man.
the Eagles. So
I can't get a football jersey.
I like this one too. Here we go.
Oh,
Hey,
Got a little
that's from when I think we were in high school. That's the same one we wore. Is that wow?
Joe.
got that one
Oh
for my
my
nephew,
God.
actually.
Joe's the Matt Mullins of Southwest football. He gets all the stuff from Southside. Man,
Some of them full confession, some of them I bought. All right. So there you go.
No problem.
At least you tell the truth. Hey, that's good.
that's awesome. Well, it's the District 2 Sports Podcast, and we have Joe Newell here from Denver Sports. We're doing the Southside Virginia High School preview. We're talking Dogwood District and Piedmont District football. I don't know if you let Joe introduce himself. I mean, what he's been doing. I mean, if you guys have been, or let Big D go real quick.
Well, what I was going to say, I might as well get my rants out of the way because Joe don't want to be part of this. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things I got to get off my chest right now. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and
Several years ago. Well, we don't know what's about to
I have the button ready.
I hope that I don't hurt nobody's feelings here, but I'm in Augusta, Georgia right now. Does anybody know anything about Augusta, Georgia? There's only one thing good about Augusta, Georgia, is all I'm going to tell you. And I can't believe they have the Masters golf tournament here. There is, I mean, dude, let me tell you something. You can't even find this place. Let me tell you, there's a wall around it, and it's a green windscreen. You can't look through the fence. You can't do nothing with the Masters. Let me tell you what I did yesterday. I'm on the way down here. I just said, I'm going to grow up. I'm going to put my big boy pants on. I call over there to the Augusta National, and this lady answers. I said, ma'am, I said, how you doing today? I said, I think what I'm going to do is, I said, I'm only like 20 minutes away. I'm going to ride over there to the clubhouse and try to get some merchandise and take some pictures of the clubhouse. And she said, quote, "No, you're not." And I said, "Wow." I said, I think I will. I got plenty of time. She goes, "You don't." And then I said, "Ma'am," I said, "What's going on over there? Well, you can't even get on there." And she goes, "We close for this entire summer. You cannot come to the clubhouse until the golf tournament. You cannot buy a Masters anything until the golf tournament is going on." So I'm just befuddled, and it makes me mad. Plus, it covered it. What I'm getting to was even bigger. It carries over to this morning when I attempt to go to IHOP. Okay, and IHOP, I'm sitting at the table. Well, first of all, I walk in the restaurant with my books under my arm because I'm gonna do a little work at the table. Hey, have a seat over here in the second booth. Sit down. 12:35, 12:59. Big G ain't ate nothing. He ain't seen a cup of coffee. Ain't seen an iced tea. Ain't seen a water. Ain't seen nobody. So I don't think they knew what a huge influencer I truly was sitting there. So I'm already going onto the IHOP website, sending out messages about now 20 minutes. Nobody's come to my table. So it kind of ruined my morning. But got a chance to go to Waffle House. So anybody needs to go to Waffle House, I have to go to Waffle House. So that's number one. Number two.
There's more. There's more.
Yeah, there's plenty to go before Joe gets into this. Number two, has anybody seen this crazy thing about this kid in Arkansas?
In Tulsa.
No. This kid in Arkansas practicing football.
The snake, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Cottonmouth in his helmet, bro.
Yep.
It wasn't a little snake. This thing was 2 foot long, stuck in his helmet, and he's practicing in it. So at the end of the day, they can't get the snake out of the helmet, and they have to stick it in a bowl of water or some kind of
that, like ice bath.
Yeah. This snake was huge. How did this guy not get bit? So anyway, everybody playing sports, look at your equipment. Make sure you don't have no cottonmouths in your equipment, in your jock strap especially, okay?
Gregory used to bring home. He used to have rats in his gym bag. I remember that.
I did have that.
Let out mice in the house.
The Chatham boys locker room, the baseball room, we had rats and mice everywhere.
Well, that ought to go.
Chatham's probably under investigation now for that.
Chad will be in touch with you now. Is he still out there? Yeah. He'll join the podcast. And ain't no rats out in Chatham, man. Okay, Gregory, you spilled the beans. Team from Tulsa. Yeah. And I don't want to hear either one of you two little young men talk about your dad messing with your birthdays and not knowing what day y'all was born on. This dude goes and actually physically fills out the paperwork and puts the wrong birthday down on a kid that don't even play in any of the games. And then they get expelled or whatever, disqualified or whatever. Now I think they were in the championship basically, won't they?
Yeah, and they lost. It was the semifinals. I think they lost or they won or something like that. And then I can't remember. Whatever happened, Texas East or Texas West, whoever won their game, is like, oh no, we got to pay. They were like, hey, let's get an injunction so Tulsa can play in that championship game. But I don't know. It was just crazy.
Was this Little League World Series?
Yeah, you hear about this? Yeah.
No.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Dad filled out the paperwork for us. The kid, he's a bench warmer.
Also, what I understand is that they were having, so was it the Challenger program or Challenger League, whatever, as far as Little League. If you had some kids on that from there, and you had like a sibling, they can get in and play somehow. So they were just like having like random like siblings, saying they're playing the Challenger, but then they like would delete like Challenger games and stuff like that. So I don't know. It was just, it was levels to this. I was like, I've never seen.
It's not like there's other stuff. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Next, Red
Sox.
Yeah, I got 2 more things, and then I'm done. Red Sox. Can anybody figure this out? I mean, dudes were 40 and 48. They win 15 straight. They lose 2. They win 9 straight. Now they've lost 5. Getting ready to be swept by the Blue Jays tonight. I hadn't even checked the score. Anybody know what's going on? I mean, how do you do that? How do you do this? I mean, I know I buried them right off the get-go, and then it's always the Red Sox that do this to me. It's nobody else. Maybe Carolina every once in a while. But, here I am, 64 and 51. We're going to World Series. Now I don't even know if we'll get to the playoffs. This is sad. Last but not least, Joe, and then I'm
done. I know who exactly this is about.
Oh, no. All right. Yeah.
Here we go.
You got to relax when you get through this, okay?
He saved this one apparently, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. We know it's coming, and he was upset early this week, so I hope he chills out.
I don't know. Are you sure y'all know what this is all about?
I mean,
all I know is I have been crucified for the last few days about these polls and all this knowledge and max preps and everything. Joe, can I tell you something? My favorite week is next week when we do the polls. Okay, when we do our first poll. It's my favorite week because that's when I show my expertise and my knowledge on area football. But these guys will never give me any credit for anything because they just I have beaten them in any fashion, form, whatever, in pick 'em, college pick 'em, whatever. It's not even close. I mean, I'm winning games. I mean, I'm winning series by 20 and 30 games over these two guys. And they will act like they in the ballpark. They ain't even in the parking lot. So, Daddy, what I'm trying to get to, the point is, Daddy knows a little bit about something. And as I said a few minutes ago in a text message, sometimes you two need to just tip your cap as I circle the base pass. Okay, that's all. Just tip your cap.
I for sure thought that last bit was going to be about Seth Trimble. I just had a feeling.
Oh, Devin, why are you saying anything? Why are you saying we're trying to get through this?
Let's get to Joe. Let's get to Joe here.
Yeah, y'all got my message on Seth yesterday, dude. How do you transfer to Louisville? And how do you do that? And you've been in Carolina for 18 years, and then all of a sudden you're going to transfer you for your last year? I mean, I'm sure enough if they would have thought that he was going to get an injunction to be able to play one more year, they would have made room on the roster for him.
Mathis is all over you tonight.
What are you? I ain't even reading it. I'm so mad right now. I don't know what to do. All right,
Mathis is all over you tonight. All right, let's let Joe take the stage. Let him introduce himself, what he's done.
Yeah. Joe, let's do something really important right here.
Joe's our guest. Joe's now part of the family.
Hey, Gregory and Devin, if it makes you feel any better, I'm a licensed life coach as well. So if I need to take Big G under my wing a little bit and try to straighten out some of this family animosity going on here.
And Joe, you have to admit, you did take me under your wing at some of these GW games because I'm flying up down the sideline, ranting and raving. He's like, hold on, it's going to be okay, Greg. We got plenty of time on the clock. All we got to do is intercept the pass right here, pick up a fumble.
Well,
he walks me right through everything.
You know what it is, man. To get likes, you got to be out there saying stuff next to the opposing teams when you shouldn't be. And so good on you on that one.
All I know is the best line I ever saw was me and Joe were standing on the GW sideline, and I think the kid, the last name is Martin. I can't remember what his first name was, but he was a wide receiver from Magna Vista. Kid had burned us, he had burned us for like 2 or 3 touchdowns in the first half. And all of a sudden, one of the kids for GW on the sidelines looks at him. He's standing on our side looking at us. I mean, we could have reached out and touched him. And the kid says, "Hey, dude, you've caught your last touchdown pass for the night." And old Martin looks at him. He says, "No, I got a couple more left." And I know he had one more. He had a bomb, like the first play of the second half was like 48 yards or something. So I don't know if he caught another one, but that dude, he said, I got some more.
Man. All right, let's let Joe take the stage.
Yeah, Joe takes center stage.
Where do you go from there, right?
I know, right? I mean, hopefully you can follow up somehow.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. It's a pleasure to be with you tomorrow. First real scrimmages get going, so that's always fun. I'm a lifelong Cubs fan. This year I got something to root for, but there are a lot of years in between where it's like you just got to look at opening day kind of thing and say, "Hey, hope springs eternal again. Maybe this is our year." But tomorrow, even though it's just scrimmages, first time you start really facing other opponents, it's always just a fun day. Really is. So
Joe, we'll still see you on the sidelines at GW. Are you going to be in the stands?
I'll probably. Well, I don't know. I have a hard time sitting in the stands. But I'll probably be down on the sidelines if I don't get run off. But I do know the security over there, so hopefully they'll let me through.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
While you're talking about that, and Joe sitting in the stands or being on the sideline, I'm sure Joe already knows this, but Dan Danaher is officially out as the AD at GW. He is heading to Indiana to be with his grandchildren. So I'm not even sure who the AD is, but or going to be whatever. I'm sure it's already taken place since school's already started. So you might know something about that, Joe.
Yeah, the process has been ongoing to find his replacement. To my knowledge, they haven't officially settled on anyone, or if they have, they haven't announced it. I do know someone on the panel that, that's making the decisions on who that'll be. Yeah, tough timing, really, when you think about it. It's like you'd rather probably make this hire at least at the beginning of the summer with everything kicking off in like 2 weeks. Basically, golf is already getting going. To be an AD, to come into a new situation as an AD, I mean, again, I don't have any inside knowledge, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was somebody they were familiar with already, at least, if not for an interim, just to kind of make that transition easier. But I don't really know who it might be at this point.
I might have ran him off to Indiana anyway, because every time I saw him at church, I was saying, hey, make sure we're on the list for the ball games. So the last time I saw him and he announced that, he said, oh, don't worry, I got you an assistant for the passes for the sideline. So I said, okay, hey, you can take off now. It's fine. Thank you. Congratulations to him and good luck to him enjoying retirement and his grandchildren.
Well, it's like Matos is the new AD. He's claiming so. That place can be run amok. I don't know if I trust Matos to run that program. But where you guys want to start? You want to start in the Dogwood? I think we were talking about.
Let's start with the Dogwood.
All right.
Yeah.
Joe, do you want to start off with the Dogwood, or maybe some teams? I don't know if you want to start with the Pennsylvania County teams, or how you want to start with that.
Yeah. Well, let's just talk about the Dogwood in general, and then we can, obviously I got a little bit more insight. I've interviewed all the local coaches here in the last week or two, so I kind of have a better feel for where our local teams are at. But when you look at the Dogwood as a whole, let me just say this to all my fans around the area. I'm gonna be objective tonight, best I can. Love all of you, but I think you still got the three at the top this year that you had last year, meaning Altavista, Appomattox, and Gretna. There's probably more, I would assume, based on graduation. I think there's a little bit more question mark as far as Gretna goes, especially at the quarterback position. And then Altavista, I kind of felt even last year, remember we did the playoff thing, you guys asked me about Altavista then. I'd seen them in person, seen them on film, and just felt like last year even they were missing one or two pieces from the prior year when they were a little bit better. My understanding is they've graduated some more kids. Now, having said that, just like any program, if you got good coaching and it's a good program, they're going to be ready to go. So I have no doubt they're going to play hard, physical football. So Altavista is going to be ready to go. I think Appomattox is probably in a little bit better position than the other two as far as consistency and depth. But you don't really know till they put it out there on the field. Even when you look back at Appomattox's game against Gretna last year, that was a weird game, a tale of two halves. Appomattox was up 22-0, and then Gretna reeled off 30 straight on them. And then Gretna had Altavista beat, and just kind of, I don't know, just laid an egg the last couple of minutes of that game, let Altavista come all the way back. But having said all that, we'll see what happens with the quarterback position. Rayshawn Logan, if you think about him, let me move over to my Gretna sheet here just for a second.
I mean, he's been the quarterback for 5 years, hasn't he? I mean,
no, actually, he only got the 2 years. He actually was behind. Yeah, they had another quarterback who was quite talented prior to Rayshawn. But when you look at his totals, you're talking just shy of 3,900 yards and 54 touchdowns.
Wow.
Between rushing and passing. So that, that's quite a bit to replace. Having said that, talking with Coach Miller, he's high on Fitzgerald, the kid that's coming in to take over that spot. Let me make sure I get my notes right on that one too.
You say 3,900 yards?
I put them alphabetical here, but what's that?
You say 3,900 yards for Logan last year, or over?
Yeah, it's
career?
Like 38-58. I think 38-58 was the number. Yeah. So, but yeah, Anthony Fitzgerald looks like the guy that's going to take over the reins as the QB this year. Coach Miller said he's had a really good preseason. And if you know Gretna, they, even though they graduated a couple of receivers in Witcher and Tanks, they still got three really good receivers there in the form of Tyson Miller, Braden Breedlove, and Jamarian Jones-Carter, who as a sophomore last year made a real big dent in their offense too. So still plenty of guys to throw it to. They always seem to have somebody in the backfield. I think they had a couple of guys they'll be looking at there to kind of tote the rock in the backfield. But, if Fitzgerald steps up and steps right in, Sean always has those guys ready to play, man. And, I like what Gretna does. They simplify things and they play fast and they play to the strengths of their kids. And so you're going to get them flying around and playing with their hair on fire every game, and they don't quit. So but yeah, I think any of those three teams, Appo, Gretna, or Altavista, could easily again win the Dogwood. Those were all tight games last year, and we'll see if anything. Like I said, maybe I'll give a little bit of an edge to Appo in terms of maybe depth and consistency. All three teams are well coached and should be ready to go, I think.
Joe, do you think a Dan River can pop through there? I mean, I know they're going to have some key players at key positions. I don't know if they can pop into that top 3 or top 2, maybe.
Dan River's really interesting to me. I think Jamarion Davis is really primed to break out this year. He made some pretty acrobatic, amazing plays a year ago. Tayshawn Nash is back at Dan River. He was at GW last year, so you get a tight end / DN now. He'll probably have to talking with Coach Knight there. I think they're probably going to ask him to play a little bit of both ways, where at GW he just played tight end exclusively. So that's a big body. I don't know what he's listed. I haven't seen the roster yet for this year, but he's probably 6'4", I don't know, 225 or something like that. So now you've got, and Davis is tall too. Davis is probably 6'4", and can jump through the clouds, right? So you got two big bodies, and then they've got some more smaller, just super quick kind of slot guys out there too. Josh Richardson, I can think of. Dalen Gregory, who was one of our newcomers of the year last year as a freshman, brother of DJ Gregory, who's the all-time rushing leader at Dan River. Not real big kid, but man, super quick. Just seems to always be around the ball. If you need a play, you can get the ball to him. So I think for Dan River, it'll come down to playing in the box. How well do they play inside the box? If they can run the ball consistently on offense and defend the run, against the Altavistas, against the Appomattoxes, you got to be able to play physical football inside the tackle box. And I think that's probably their biggest challenge. The Kirby kid that did get in some games last year as quarterback, especially in the playoff game against Gretna, the Josiah Farmer went down, I think, real early, like first series of the game, he went out of that game, and Kirby had to play the remainder of it. He looked confident to me. Maybe he hadn't had a lot of game time experience, but yeah, they're real interesting to me. They do have pieces. They've got size and spots, but I just got to see them play consistently physical inside the tackle box before I'd say, hey. But having said all that, yeah, they could turn some heads if they really play up to what I think they're capable of.
I was just going to say, I've considered Dan River and Nelson probably for the last 2 to 3 years, just kind of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You just don't know which teams are going to show up. But, what I'm really curious about, and Joe might have a little information, anybody may have. I mean, it wasn't too awful long ago, maybe 3 years ago, I guess. Chatham goes 4-2 and 7-4 overall. What's going on in Chatham? And the other thing is, what has happened to William Campbell over the last couple of years? I mean, Ophers last two. Well, they went 1-10 2 years ago, and also there was I had to go back and make sure I was not seeing things, but at 1-10, William Campbell goes to the playoffs in 24. Can anybody steer me in the right direction on that one?
I guess that's one. Was that 1C? No, 1B. I think 1B might have been that.
Oh, for William Campbell, yeah, that would be, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You get down into the smaller schools sometimes, and there's just not enough teams that are winning to fill out the bracket. Sometimes that happens, but we had the opposite happen when I coached at GW back in '93. We played for state titles in '94 and '96. '93 was our best team. We were 9-1, ranked number 2 in the state, didn't qualify for the playoffs.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
We lost in double overtime at City Stadium with a sophomore quarterback because our starter had gotten injured. But, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's just kind of the weirdness of the way brackets happen and PowerPoints. And there's teams there's schools that aren't fielding teams anymore either. So sometimes you're reducing numbers just by that alone. You asked about Chatham. I think it's quite simple. There's a lot of turnover at the head coaching position. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're on their 4th coach in 5 years. And for kids that, take football serious, that want to maybe go on to the next level and play, that kind of thing matters. And this year in particular, it looks like there's at least 3 that would play both ways for Chatham, and they're all over at GW.
Yep.
So, and they all 3 have the potential to get on the field. One of them is going to be, I know Ray's already posted something about it, a graphic about it earlier today, but one of them is going to take up the number 4 mantle from Antonio now that he's at William & Mary. But I think that's the biggest thing at Chatham right now is just the turnover, and you need somebody that comes and stays for a while, builds the program the right way. From what I can tell, Matt Allen, who's the new coach, came over from William Campbell. He had been at Chatham previously. He's, from what I can tell at a distance and talking with him the other day, he's doing all the right things. But it's going to take, whoever the coach is, it's going to take time for kids and families to buy into that, to say, hey, this guy's going to not only do it right, but he's going to be here for 2, 3, 4, 5, or 10 years so that my kid can see the consistency all the way through. So
I just want to add, did Matt Toast, did he allow GW to use that number 4, or he saying you can't use his name?
Is he pulling a Jaden Daniels? Is that what you're saying? And he's like, hey, you can't wear that jersey number. I don't know. He seems like he's celebrating it online. So
I bet you got paid. He got paid. I have no idea.
Oh,
hey, go ahead, Devin. I'll ask him in a minute.
I got to ask about the team up in Livingston there, Nelson County. They start out 3-0 last year. Bryce Giles looking pretty decent at quarterback. Obviously, we know his talent on the basketball court. But then, just when they played anybody with real talent, it seemed Altavista, Gretna, Appomattox. They just did not look good. Is there any hope in Livingston this year for a better season?
It's hard to define what would be better for certain teams. I was at the Piedmont District Media Day last year, and I won't name any schools or any teams, but sometimes when you talk to teams and especially at the beginning of the year, you kind of get a feel that some of it's hopeful, but that it might be hopium at the same time. You don't. It's like we wish we were really tough as nails and we could compete with these bigger schools, but it's kind of they need a mentality switch, I think, to move over. It's not that they're not capable of it. I'm not saying that at all. It just sometimes that mental part of it that says, hey, we can compete at the highest levels. That translates to a physical game like football. You have to carry that mentality into games, and especially if you get behind, right? But sometimes I think it gets in kids' heads before games. You're like, well, hey, this team was, regional finalists the last X number of years or whatever. We know we got our hands full tonight, and they kind of walk out with a little less intensity. Not true about every kid on the field, obviously, but I think it's really critical that you go into every game believing not only that you belong there, but you've got a chance to go out there and win or maybe upset somebody. I don't know Nelson. I'm speaking out of turn on Nelson, so I don't know them very well. I have seen them play a couple of times. But I think that might be the key is just you gotta flip that switch at some point to go, hey, we're right there we can hang with Appo, we can hang with Altavista and Gretna, we can do that. Because you watch them play basketball and you see some of the bodies out there and you go, good gracious, man. Yeah. You get that crew out on a football field, playing with some focus, playing with some angriness, and and it could translate for sure. Yeah, it's not like that they don't have athletes out there that are capable of pulling that off. Yeah, that would be kind of my guess from the outside, but I would say that's the very outside looking in at Nelson where they might sit.
I just want to add, I was at the Dogwood District Media Day this year. I didn't get a chance to talk to Nelson County. I left right before them, but they got some big kids on the team. One kid I noticed was Eli Durant was their running back. Kid looks like a monster. I'll give a shout out real quick to Jack. He runs the Barstool page for Nelson County. He said, watch out for Brody Clements, Dylan Butler, Samuel Butler, Brent Tabor, Bryce Giles, Xavier Jaquez, Eli Durant, Jacob Clements, Jackson Price, and Andrew Awkward. So those names, watch out for them this year.
I guess that's kind of my point too. There's guys there. You see Nelson in various sports and you go, wait a minute, they got guys for sure.
Go ahead, Bobs.
No, I was going to say, is there another district, and then I was going to say another team or a district that can be any happier to see Brody Doyot graduate and Gretna and the Dogwood District. I mean, Nelson gets thumped 50-0, and then in 3 years, Gretna gets knocked out basically in the regional finals by Glenver in the last 3 seasons. It's crazy. I mean, they got to be happy. Rayshawn probably saw Brody in his sleep every Friday night after that.
Yeah, I'm sure. And people don't realize he did get injured at one point last year. He didn't really miss any time per se. I think he missed one game, but he played on both sides of the ball at times too. Yeah. And when you watch Glenver play, it doesn't matter which level of the team, whether that's first, second, or third level. Everybody tackles. Everybody plays physical and hard and fast. You know, you can tell they work on fundamentals from day one with that crew, and they just bring it they will take plays off. And, so it's Glenver, you know, obviously Glenver's still going to be right there probably when you get to the regional round, but certainly getting Brady to move on to the college ranks. I'm sure there's a lot of people kind of just wiping their brow, you know, and taking a big, deep breath after that one, for sure.
I just want to add, last 5 years in Dogwood, Appomattox was 25-5, Gretna was 24-6, Altavista 18-12. Then it kind of gets into below 500. Denver 14-16, Chatham 11-18. Lincoln was 8-22, and then Nelson County was 4-25. But I feel like they're going to be a lot better than that. I think they've been a lot better the last couple of years. But overall, you kind of see it being that type of order. Maybe you can switch a Chatham and Nelson there, or maybe Lincoln will finish last with Chatham right above them.
Oh,
yeah, and then you're gonna add, depending on how the appeals and all that go out. I mean, Smith Mountain Lake's going to be in the mix.
Oh, that's true.
That's what I was going to ask. I'm sorry.
It's. You know, it's not the same as saying, hey, to be the best, you got to beat the best kind of thing, you know, whoever won for the thing last year. But at the same time, if you're going to be at the top of the Dogwood or surprise some people, at least, let's say, you're going to have to beat one of those top three somewhere in there, right? Yeah. They obviously might do like they did last year, and each one of them beat each other, and everybody takes one loss there. But if you're somewhere in the middle of that pack, you're going to have to take down one of those top three to kind of take that next step. You know, it's not enough quietly. If you're just going to go in and beat some, you know, out of conference too is tricky because some of these schools don't play real tough out of conference schedules. And then they get into the conference, you know, and need wins pretty desperately. So, I don't know. We got Dennis jumping in there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's talking about William Campbell. Yeah. So I don't know. Dan River would be the one that I would probably look at to go, if they play up to their talent pool and play it consistently, again, play really tough in the tackle box on both sides of the ball, I think they got a shot to surprise some people and kind of move up a bit this year.
Has that been their biggest, just over the years, I've always seen that Dan River had the athletes to win, but it seems like they just didn't have it up front and maybe in the trenches maybe over the years.
Yeah.
Is that how you see it, or is it something else?
I got some theories about that, but I'll kind of keep them to myself a little bit. But
I kind of know where you can go with that.
I think it's tough because if you I went and we did the Altavista Dan River game last year, and it wasn't close.
Yeah.
And I didn't watching the game. I didn't think it was because Altavista just had the more talented group or the bigger group. Even they just played harder, faster. They were certain about what they were doing. And that's what I mentioned earlier about Gretna. They play in such a way as they know exactly what they're going to do on every play. They don't confuse their kids. And I'm not saying Dan River does that, but when you watch the Altavista game against Dan River, they're flying to the spots and Dan River's not matching that intensity for whatever reason it might be. Doesn't mean those kids aren't playing hard. They do. They play with their heart on their sleeve. And I love it. Right. You see the passion on their faces, but I don't know if it's a situation where sometimes kids are waiting to see somebody step up and make a play and change the turn the tide. There were games last year where they had stretches that they played surprisingly well and got up on teams, or even the opener against Tunstall a year ago. Tunstall was in the driver's seat in that game. And I don't know, Dan River said, no, we're not doing this. And they just flipped a switch and ran away from it at the tail end of that game. But for about 3 quarters, Tunstall was, they were in the driver's seat in that one. So I think with Dan River, the thing I'd really love to see out of the Wildcats is that consistent, steady burn from kickoff to finish where there's no let up. There's not like, hey, we played really well for 2 quarters, but then we had one really bad quarter or something like that. I think there's sometimes little lapses in there that I kind of would like to see them kind of clean up a little bit.
Oh, I should ask. I know I mentioned the trenches for Dan River. Carter Fannin, I think is his name. I talked to him. Big boy. So
yeah, he is.
Some help up front.
Yeah.
So this district,
are the Ospreys going to be 1A or excuse me, are the Ospreys going to be Class 1 or Class 2?
I think they're Class 1 right now for Class 1B.
Yeah,
I think I saw they try to appeal to Class 1 Region C, so they want to move over to like the Pioneer District, those teams and stuff like that. I guess that's probably a good point. Joe,
Dan River also has the best kicker in the area, by the way. Now that Cam Stevens has graduated GW, Riley Goddard there, he kicked a 46-yarder last year, which was not quite the school record, but close. And I think it's just his junior year. So he's been the kicker as a freshman and sophomore. I think he's just moving into his junior year now, and he's been out at camps all summer. If it comes down to a tight game and Dan River has a chance to knock off an Altavista or an Appo or a Gretna, he could be the piece that kind of makes that happen.
Man. Go ahead, Big G.
No, I was going to say, talking about 1A, I mean, I've asked several people about, the conferences or districts, I'm sorry, and talking about Class 1, excuse me, I'll get it straight here in just a second for the VHSL. But, for Altavista to have to go and climb around and find people to play and stuff, I just find it, especially this year, and I'm not saying I don't want to confuse anybody right here and say it the wrong way, but it seems like Class 1 is going to be a dogfight this year for the state championship run. I mean, all these kids from out in Southwest, where we got Rye Cove and the East Side and Altavista, Essex. I mean, who knows? I mean, it seems like it's going to be a dogfight for that title this year.
Yeah, right. It definitely. See, it was fun watching the playoffs last year at Class 1. I mean, good gracious, there were some really good football teams out there. They could have just as easily played up in Class 2 and done some damage as well. Yeah,
and I forgot Riverheads is in Class 1 too this year, so I'm sorry I deleted them. I totally forgot about them.
Appomattox, Gretna, Altavista won the last have won every first place finish since 2021, 67-23 combined in the district between all three of those. So it's been a bit of a domination between the top three there.
Joe, what would you say the if you put a percent on something, what is the percent on Altavista? Maybe making a regional final or getting into that semifinal, state semis?
Ooh, man. For all the reasons you just mentioned, it's going to be tough. I like the Colonels a lot. I love their program. I think they're super well coached. Kids play exceptionally hard. But, when you start rattling off that list of teams that you would potentially have to go through to get that far to win a regional title and make the Final Four, let's say, that's going to be really tough, I think. Now granted, it's small town. There might be some really good young kids moving up into the program. When you talk about schools that size, you got to play some 9th graders and 10th graders into that might be really talented. They just need game experience. And if I had to put a percentage on it, good gracious, man, you really put me on the spot here.
Good stuff.
I'm like, your poll is next week, man, or whenever it is. Leave me alone. Man. There's probably about 4 or 5 teams that you could just all rank them in there percentage-wise. Anyway, I wouldn't necessarily go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but man, I'd say probably 25-30%
too.
I'd say 25-30%, but that doesn't mean that there's one team sitting out there at like 60-70% necessarily. Yeah. It could be there's about 5 teams that all have about a 30% chance at this thing. But it's a tough. I mean, you saw last year. It's just a tough row to hoe there for sure.
And I don't know what Rappahannock has coming back this year, but I know if that quarterback's back this year, they're right there in the hunt too. So who knows?
Joe, if you were a betting man right now, who is your region player of the year?
Region player of the year. Oh, wow. That's for which region are we talking about?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. For Dogwood District. That's my apologies.
For Dogwood District Player of the Year?
Yep.
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, locally, I think you have to put Tyson Miller in that conversation. Now, granted, he had Rayshawn Logan throwing the ball, but I mean, I've got what I got. He had 60 catches last year. Let me flip over my Gretna page here. I think I've got his stats sitting over here. He's just a junior as well. He did this as a sophomore, but he led our area. Gosh, I got it right here somewhere. Hang on just a second. I know he had, let's see, top returners. There we go. 60 catches for 917 yards and 10 touchdowns a year ago as a sophomore.
Good.
And if you guys saw my photos post earlier today, the one that had Odell Beckham grab is Tyson Miller to beat Bassett with about a minute and a half to go as well. And I think it was against Altavista. He had a game where he had over 220 yards receiving.
Wow.
I believe that was the Altavista game. And I might be misspeaking on that one, but he definitely had a game where he had over 220 yards receiving. So I think he's up there. That's certainly a possibility. That's a tough question there. I'm not as familiar as probably I ought to be with some of the individual players at the other schools. I see somebody talking about Jamar. Dennis is talking about Jamar Davis.
Cooper Brooks Player of the Year for me.
There you go.
I only say that because his dad, we're good friends. So,
Joe, how is I mean, does Appo or Gretna have a chance of getting to the state semis or something like that? Because I'm just going to say it. I mean, I haven't been a huge fan of the guys, and I just learned basically that the I-81 corridor happens to house a team called Strasburg, and I'm just going to say it. They got to be the number one team in 2 right now. That's the only way I can say it. They didn't lose a whole lot. They lost a couple people that were important. Don't get me wrong. I know they lost Conrad, the lineman, and they lost one of their running backs. But if I'm not mistaken, I forget the kid that burnt Glenvar all to pieces, and then the quarterback. I think they're all back.
Was it Q Williams or something? Quincy Williams.
Yeah, he's back. He was only a junior last year, and I'm telling you, these guys are absolutely loaded. So I think it's Strasburg's to lose. In other words,
yeah. Well, I mean, you got to get out of the region first. Obviously, that means you probably have to still go through Glenvar to pull that off.
Right.
You got to win your region to get that far and even have a shot. I agree with you. Strasburg just look real tough, and but can Appo or Gretna, reclaim the regional championship? And yeah, I think it's possible. I'll know a little bit more here in the next couple of weeks once I get out and kind of see some real live contact, see how Anthony Fitzgerald's doing as quarterback for Gretna. I think also with Gretna, they're going to run the quarterback a bit more this year than they have with Rayshawn, even though last year they did run Rayshawn more than he did as his junior year. But they're going to mix in the quarterback run quite a bit more, which is going to change the dynamics somewhat. But, I mentioned earlier, I think Appo might have a slight edge there. So if all my Hawk fans, guys know I'm in your corner, but at the same time, you got to beat those guys to move ahead. So Glenvar's sitting out there. Once you got to go through Salem, and usually by the time you reach the regional title game, I know we were up there a couple of years ago for that one. Wind was howling in 30 miles an hour, cold artificial turf, spitting snow. And Glenvar, the Highlanders looked like they were just in their element. I think the same thing's true about all the teams out there in Southwest Virginia, man. By the time late November rolls around, they're just like, oh yeah, it's perfect weather for us. And other teams are rolling in with hoodies underneath their pads. And
that's one of the coldest games I've ever been to in my life. I mean, Gretna, they were trying to get warm. I think everybody went into the bathrooms to get warm, just being in there. It was awful. It was awful. Yeah.
So. Yeah, I still think it probably goes through there to get out of the region. If you can pull that off, I mean, you're right there. You're into the Final Four. You got a shot. But then, some of those big boys like Strasburg are sitting out there for sure. Altavista might sure. I think isn't Essex won? They won.
Mm-hmm.
One.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like the Altavistas, if they were able to get through their region as well, you still got the Essex and those types of teams sitting out there as also.
Yeah, I mean,
Gregory is So we got Ridgeview, we got Union, we got Glenver, we got Gretna, we got Appo, we got Strasburg. Who am I? I know I'm missing a couple others. Are the Rockets in this class too?
Craig County? No.
They're 3, right? Okay.
Craig County won.
One. Oh, okay. I forgot about Craig and the other one then. Okay, my bad. I forgot all about them in one.
You still have Floyd County, you still have Radford. Region 2C is just loaded. I think that's like just the Dogwood being matched up with the Three Rivers there. It just provides a great region. So 2D is really good as well, but it's be interesting to see. Do you think
Floyd put up a bunch of numbers last year too? I think Gretna's game against Floyd in the playoffs, so was it like, I don't know, it was like 50 to 50 something. I don't know. I don't remember the exact score, but it was they scored over 100 points combined in that game.
Yep. Graham too. We're talking about Graham. Do you feel like is the Dogwood, I mean, this might be a rhetorical question, is the Dogwood deeper than you would say the Piedmont? As far as teams who could win the district?
Yeah, probably so. I know we're going to talk about the Piedmont in a few minutes, but I think you like I said, you got 3 at the top, obvious that they could win it. I'd put Dan River in that kind of 4 spot right now to say you got a chance. Let's see what you can do with it. But it's a little bit deeper. But then after that, you're getting into, Chatham's trying to find its identity. William Campbell, as we mentioned a moment ago, is going through its struggles. Smith Mountain Lake's just trying to get its feet under it as a program. I think it's slightly more depth there in terms of quality as that goes. Then again, who knows? Maybe somebody, in the Piedmont will surprise us that we don't anticipate.
Joe, I got to ask, who is your favorite right now? If you had to pick here in August,
betting man
to win the district.
To win the Dogwood. Oh, man. I would give, and hopefully it'll come out the right way. I give a slight edge to Appomattox, but then again, when I watched them give up 30 straight to Gretna and lose 30, and they got outscored 30-0 in the second half of that game last year. So if they're back to the old Appomattox, right, that's going out there and playing for state titles, then I would give them a slight edge. But again, I don't think it's much of an edge for that reason. It's like, I got to see you play a whole game against either Altavista or Gretna or both if you want to win it. So
another part. So who would you say is your second place team right now?
I'd probably put Gretna there right now. Again, no offense to the Colonels, but I think Gretna should have won that game by probably a couple scores a year ago against Altavista. It's just weird thing at the last few minutes of that game. They were up by a couple scores and the wheels just came off of it at the end. But that's the nature of Altavista, right? Those kids don't quit, man. They're going to play you all the way out in the parking lot when the game's over. They just don't stop. They just keep coming at you. And that's a credit to them and their program as well. So I'd probably put Gretna kind of, and it might be more of a 1A, 1B type situation when you look at that, or even 1C, if you want to say for all 3 of those schools. They all kind of have some strengths, but they all each have a little something they got to prove or they're missing, I think, as well. So,
So if we're talking odds here, and so just looking at that, we're talking odds here. So right now you have Appomattox and Gretna at the top. Are you thinking it's going to be one of those teams or the field in terms of percentage to win the Dogwood?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going on Poly Market and saying, hey, where does this thing sit? I'd probably put my money down on one of those two. But for the reasons I just stated about Altavista too, it wouldn't shock me at all if Altavista won the Dogwood as well. So
especially having consistency at the QB and
I don't look at it. I'll be honest. Here's one thing I will say: I don't look at the 3 of them and go, there's one team that's just going to mow down everybody. Right. I just don't see that out of any of the 3. But who knows? Might be a year that one of them steps up and really just cruises through. I'm not sure.
Joe, all they're doing is buttering you up for the snake draft we're about to have. And they'll know, hey, Joe said this. And then at the end of the year, one of them's going to say, well, Joe told me this, and he gave me the inside track on this team. So that's what they're buttering you up for. They know what they're doing here.
There you go. I see Altavista has both those games at home this year. That helps. That matters when you're in your home environment, and it's a good environment, small town. My first journalism job was with the Altavista Journal. love the people there. So yeah, it's a great place to play.
Oh wow, they get Dan River, Appomattox, and Gretna all at home.
Yeah,
according to Max Preps.
Yeah, I was hoping you was going to say Smith Mountain Lake, Joe, so one of them would take them. So I mean,
Oh man,
who knows? Did you see Smith Mountain Lake play baseball this year? They surprised a lot of people during baseball season. They had a good team. Now, does that translate to football? I don't know, but yeah, they had a good baseball team this year.
they got the best. They got the best mascot in high school sports, the Ospreys, and they look just like the Seattle Seahawks. So I mean,
I know. Hey, if you're just going by who's going to be dressed the best on Friday night, it's going to be hard to beat Smith Mountain Lake on the way they look. Yeah.
Please tell Devin, because he'll pick them because of that. He loves uniforms.
The PowerPoint is coming out. We have a fight about the PowerPoint right now. PowerPoint is coming out for the top 10. I'm letting you guys know that.
I have an unofficial rule in my house with it never works out because I can't enforce it, but teams that have ugly uniforms should not be allowed to win games.
I say too.
I have a theory that's why the Cleveland Browns have been so bad for so long. They just can't quite get their uniforms right. So
I just want to add one last thing on the Dogwood. Devin, I think for your analytics, your combined rankings, whatever, I think Altavista finished the highest there, and then Gretna was second, I think, in that as well. So just going back to last year, so that's something to think about too. So it'll be interesting to see if that carries over this year.
And some of those guys, you guys know how it is too. It depends on it comes down to talent, but it also comes down to schemes. Sometimes you match up better against certain teams and not against others. And so yeah, I think if Appomattox can control the clock a little bit like a la GW, meaning they're just taking their 3-4 yards but not turning it over and finishing drives, they'll eat clock and it'll make it hard on teams that that rely on big plays. But Altavista is capable of that as well. So,
any other comments on the Dogwood before we get to the Piedmont? I think it's what everybody's waiting for, the Piedmont here. Yeah. I think a lot of GW fans in the comments here tonight.
Yeah, I see them. I live next to them too. Yeah,
let's see. All right, I'll let Joe take it over for the Piedmont.
Okay. I mean, the Piedmont's the Piedmont. I mean, I think Greg just touched on it a minute ago, kind of without saying it, or somebody one of you asked me, like, which district is more, has more depth or whatever it might be, who has a better chance to, when you look at it, obviously you're going to have to go, there's GW and Magna Vista sitting right at the top again. Now there's things to consider with that. It's a little bit of a flip this year. I think last year, Magna Vista was the old team. Meaning that core group there, Dukes and Simeon Moore and Tyler Martin and the older Scott kid and so forth, they had been there for a long time, right, and played together. They were, in my estimation, I really thought they had a good shot to make state title game a year ago. Obviously, they played Lake Taylor tooth and nail, and that one didn't go their way at the end. But they were the older group, but they graduated that core group. Now, I will say this. They do a phenomenal job in Ridgeway of integrating younger kids into the flow of what they're doing. So it's not just like, well, we had older group, now they're out, now we got to start brand new with this younger group. They try to integrate those younger kids in and get them game experience before it's their time to be the main guy. But having said that, GW is the older group this year. Now they have the veteran core that maybe Magna Vista had a year ago. So I think that'll be one thing to keep an eye on.
Joe, was there a better football game last year than that district title game?
That's the one I voted for. I know there were when you guys did the poll, and there were other games that were pretty phenomenal too, but an overtime game for the district title, two teams that had, state title aspirations, and it went into double overtime there. Yeah, I don't know. I went back and I have access to all of GW's films, so I went and watched that again, and there was a chance for Magna Vista was up by 1 score in the first, had a chance to go up by 2 scores and turn the ball over. Second half, GW had a chance to go up by 2 scores, same thing, turn the ball over, couldn't finish the drive. And so that game just ended up being just body blow, just haymaker after haymaker, even though GW was probably throwing a few more body blows with the way they were, playing their offense.
And Gregory, that's when Joe took me under his arm and said, all we need is 1 turnover. And that's like, but you know what? It was, me bouncing around from both sidelines. and I can't never say that coach's name right. What's the coach at Magna Vista?
Favero.
Who was it?
I think it's Favero, but I'm in the
Favero,
camp with you. I might be
Joe.
mispronouncing it
This
as
guy
well.
calls it Favreau.
I do. I butcher it every time I say him. I even butchered it before the game, so I'm just going to tell you. And but anyway, I think it was double overtime, correct? So
yeah.
The first overtime, when I was on their sideline, and I heard him say, as soon as we get down and score, we're going for 2 and we're ending this thing. But they didn't. He changed his mind at the last second. So the second time when they went for 2, and it was awful close over there too on that play. It truly was. I think of GW had trouble obviously during that game covering some of their receivers. Some of that I think was, I just think they probably didn't have the right call on or whatever. But on that last play to end the game, they had 2 linebackers, Lipscomb and Neil Hairston, both running at Simeon Moore. They were like, Simeon Moore's not running this in. And so he was forced to throw it into the corner late. And, it's a pretty amazing game, honestly, for a district title game. And those 2 go at it. That's 2 years in a row. Because if you remember the year before in the hole, Neo Cabell actually drops the ball, picks it up, and runs it in to basically win the game there in the hole, 2 years ago. So these 2 teams go at it. I think there's like I might be mixing this up, but no, that's Reedsville. We'll talk about them in a minute. But I mean, they're going to go at it, and I think without question, those are the top 2 teams in the district again. Where's Mecklenburg, Bassett, Tunstall, where those Halifax, where are those schools going to be? I mean, that's a real interesting question. I'm a little more tuned in with Tunstall in that regard. Bassett, of course, got a new coach. It's kind of late in the year as well. I'm not saying they didn't get a good coach. He's done well wherever he's gone. That kind of leaves Martinsville a little bit in the lurch late in summer too. So, but I think it's those 2, and then it'll be really interesting after those 2 where everybody kind of fills in.
Do you think David Cook and Zyreek Mans for Bassett could force some? I mean, I think they're sitting 3rd no matter what, but you think they could play a part into maybe get into a 2 somehow between Magna Vista and GW? Are they so far?
David Cook is an exceptional athlete. I know there's some rumors floating around he might not play. I kind of doubt that. I don't have any inside knowledge of that. Just because he signed a D1 baseball scholarship, kid throws low 90s. But if you go back and I was at the GW Bassett game a year ago, and that was. That point in the season, Bassett had been putting up really big passing numbers on everybody getting into that game. That game was 35-0. Mm-hmm. Bassett had 11 yards of offense at halftime.
Wow.
Jeez.
They finished with like 100 and something. They harassed. They had, again, kind of like the last play against Magna Vista to beat them. They weren't going to let Moore out. They had a plan to harass David Cook and not let him stay on his spot and make the throws. Because if you do that, the arm talent's exceptional. He's obviously a gamer. You don't want to let him get comfortable. They did not let him get comfortable, and that they chased him and harassed him the entire night. And no slight to the Bassett receivers. I just thought the Magna Vista group of receivers was another tier higher, speed-wise and whatnot. And GW was actually able to hang with the Bassett receivers in that game, so that allowed them to kind of just shut that down. I think David Cook can turn any game, in whether it's baseball or football, on its head in a hurry, right? Because he's got that kind of arm. But, it's kind of like the old Belichick school of thought is like, I'm going to try to take your best player away from you or minimize your best player. And if you beat me with somebody else, that's cool. I would think, the GWs and the Magna Vistas would probably approach Bassett the same way. It's like, hey, David Cook's your best player on the field. We got to do everything we can to not let him be comfortable back there and just make throws.
Well, Joe, I'm gonna speak a little bit about GW just a second. And I last year made a fatal mistake after week 1 and went online, and I told coach I told him what I said. I said, hey, as soon as they lost they got thumped by Reedsville, by the way, and I said, hey, this team is 0-1, and I do not see a way of them going any better than 5-5, and they'll miss the playoffs. I did. I said it straight up. I told Coach that, and Nick forgave me, thank goodness. And anyway, I've already written in, and I'm gonna get around to my point here in just a second. I've already written in GW in a rematch with JF for the region title, But what stinks about this whole 4 group or class 4, whatever, what stinks about this whole thing is this.
Varina.
Well, Varina, you're not going to get the 4 best teams in the semifinals. You're just not, because GW and JF are going to negate each other, because it in my book it should be Varina, GW, and Jefferson Forest. And I don't care what anybody says, that group that comes out of whatever y'all call it, Loudoun County, whatever that group up there is, they should not even be playing football.
Man.
I mean,
he's going right after it this year.
That's bulletin board material right there.
It is, but it's the truth, and you know it. I mean, because they don't. I mean, it's just different football. They just can't play with that group. But it's not going to be the 4 best teams making the semis, and I have a hard time with that, especially when GW and Jefferson Forest. To me, I figure they should have just stayed on the field last year and just ran 27 or 26, that night. Just played the game again. So, that's just me.
That happens sometimes, right? It's sometimes the toughest teams. I mentioned to you earlier in the broadcast, the 93 team we had at GW that we lost in double overtime with Nate Poole had to step in as a sophomore quarterback. We lost in double overtime to EC Glass. Just happened that year. EC Glass was ranked number 1 in the state, and we were ranked GW number 2 in the state, even though we didn't qualify for the playoffs because they didn't have the expanded playoffs. Sometimes the best teams in the state might even be in the same district with one another.
Yeah.
But certainly within the same region, that does happen sometimes. I thought that about Varina. Varina had a tough road to get where they were going. Now, they were every bit apart. But man, they didn't arrive at the state championship game by cruising through easy teams in the playoffs. They beat some really good teams to get there.
Yeah, I did want to mention just the last 5 years: GW 24-4, Magna Vista 24-6, Bassett 19-10, pretty good record there. Halifax County 16-14, and after that kind of drops down a little bit. But maybe Antonio Smith, maybe, or Joe, you can comment on this. Maybe Big G in the past, like Halifax. I mean, it's a big school up there. Maybe they're kind of like a Dan River where they have some skilled athletes, but they just seem like you can't put it together to, win, 8 games or more.
Yeah. Last year I saw Halifax a bunch, actually. I saw them in a preseason scrimmage. I saw them in at least 2 regular season games, maybe 3. I think they had a real big kid playing quarterback a year ago. Not the most mobile in the world. I think if they've got a dynamic athlete at quarterback, again, I'm not knocking the kid that played that position last year, but if they had a really dynamic kind of dual threat quarterback, I think that changes a lot of things for them offensively. They've had some, it's been a long time. I was looking back this week. It's been a long time since they made like a big run in the playoffs or even, won the district and moved on. I don't know the answer to that. I was talking to a friend of mine. He's one of the track coaches out there. I just ran into him the other day here in town. And, they got brand new facilities. They don't have the new football stadium yet, but they will be getting a brand new state-of-the-art facility. Won't have to play over at the middle school anymore.
That's the craziest place in the world to play.
It is. It's not the best for visiting fans to sit and watch a game at, for sure.
Not at all.
I think I mentioned earlier, I think the question to Nelson is that, that girl's 4x100. Yeah, they can run. Yeah, that's my friend. He coaches actually that group of girls. But Joe, I don't have an answer to it. It is one high school for the county. They do have numbers in terms of enrollment to compete, obviously, in the Piedmont year in and year out. I'm not comparing them to Nelson, but it does strike me there's just something missing in the mentality and the way they play.
And people don't understand that GW and Halifax in the old Western District, and I know Joe knows all about this, especially with Dan playing and everything, that it was a dogfight. It came down every year to the last game of the season, who was going to win the Western District. And 9 times out of 10 it was GW. Let's go ahead and say that. I mean, I can remember 1983 or 2. I can't remember which one it was. Halifax comes down saying they're going to whoop us at JT Crisler Stadium. It was 44-0. We killed them. I mean, we killed them. I mean, it was nothing like it. But that's the way it went. But I also went in the early 90s. And, Joe, this might be one of those teams that you were talking about early where I think it came down to a field goal kicking contest out there at Halifax where I think Raphael kicked maybe a 40-some-yard field goal, but the guy from Halifax comes back and beats us up there with a field goal as well.
Yeah, they won the state title in like 91 or 92, right in there. I think it was 91 they won the state title. Wow. They were loaded. I mean, they had Division I guys all over that field. And that was one of those tooth and nail situations with GW. So yeah, I don't it's one of those that actually leaves you scratching your head a little bit. You think, man, they ought to get back to that. They ought to be in there, and I don't really have a good answer for that. I think for all these schools, whether it's Piedmont, Dogwood, it's always better if you got talent and quality top to bottom in competition. So I love to see teams that maybe haven't been good for a few years step up, and it'd be interesting to see Halifax, but there's just something missing there that I can't quite put my finger on. They don't match up well for some reason against the bigger dogs in the district.
Talk about this GW, the trenches at GW. I mean, I feel like both sides of the ball. I mean, it's just they're deep, they're big.
Well, everybody knows what their line looked like the year ago. Mm-hmm. When I talked with Coach Anderson about a week or so ago, and we kind of just talked through all this, he thinks the line might actually be better this year than they were a year ago. Some of that is, the two kids that are getting recruited the most right now, Glass and Reeves. They were both sophomores last year. Whew. They were like Reeves. I just looked on. I don't think it's the official roster out yet, but it's on Max Preps for GW. Reeves is a junior, 6'7", 311, and Glass. He's 6'4", about 305 or something like that. And then they got a kid that just came in at 6'5", 315. Wow. Crutchfield. I think he may have been. He may have been a BY Bartlett Yancey, but don't quote me on that. Previously, and then they only graduated one offensive lineman last year. So yeah, they did lose Chris Law to Liberty. He defensive player of the year. They lost Donovan Reeves, who's playing at North Carolina Central now. Excuse Big Bad G. Yeah, checking FanDuel. They will. As weird as it sounds, they will be better in the trenches this year than they were a year ago as a unit.
Oh, my goodness.
On both sides of the ball. They will also have more depth and more experience. Now, like I said earlier, it's an older group now, with the exception of probably, Glass and Reeves are juniors now. I guess that qualifies as being older. But, those two are getting recruited to Georgia and a whole bunch of other Division I programs. But they'll be big. They'll be physical. They'll have depth like nobody else will have along the lines. Even when Greg and I were watching the Magna Vista Piedmont District Championship game against GW a year ago, a lot of Magna Vista's guys are playing both ways. And to their credit, man, they didn't run out of gas. They were tired, but they didn't completely run out of gas because they were used to it. GW doesn't really have a whole lot of that going on, at least not along the lines. So inside the tackle box, once again, they're going to be brutal on teams. I think the perimeters are really going to tell the story, quite honestly, kind of like it did against Jefferson Forest in the regional championship game. They're going to have to play way more physical on the edges, especially at the corner spots, into the nickel spot. A year ago they moved Matos out of the free safety spot and down into the nickel position, kind of play a little bit more strong safety linebacker type. And that really negated the run, but I think it hurt them a little bit on the back end when it came to defending the pass, because he was their best pass defender as well. The Linder kid has moved over from Chatham. He was their best player a year ago. He's not only wearing number 4, but he's got a chance to do something special, especially on the defensive side of the ball back there for GW. But they've got to be way more physical on the edges. If you look back at the regional championship game against Jefferson Forest, late in the game, Jefferson Forest had some success inside the tackle box, but the game was already out of hand by that point. It was like a 30-point game at that point. But when it wasn't, they're just running this kind of toss sweep motion where they out position you on the edges. When you watch the game previous to that, when they played Hanley, they went to Hanley. That was like a 14-10 game, and they had to score late to win that one. Hanley played really physical from their corner spots. It's not just about holding ground, and but kids have got to know that if I'm a corner in that situation, I got to come up, not just be physical, but I got to squeeze this play. I got to cut down the open green spaces so the backers can flow inside out to that. And if you get kicked out, washed down the field, man, that thing's just a cakewalk at that point. That's the area GW's I'm really watching for them. If they can improve, be more physical on the edges defensively, and and not give up the big pass play. They sometimes, what's he got? Yeah. The big pass play, I think what happens a lot of times, they have good enough athletes playing DB, but they're not always disciplined with their eyes like they need to be. And a lot of times you'll see a safety release down the seam wide open, or, a guy will just run right by somebody. So they've got what they need to stop that, but I want to see it before I believe it kind of thing. And that's going to be critical if they're going to beat JF, because I do think based on who graduated what and who didn't, JF's going to be right back there again playing for that. They should be the favorite for the regional championship, to be honest. GW's right there, don't get me wrong. You got 2 1,000-yard rushers in the backfield. And beyond that, they got 2 more guys they can plug in there. Neil Hairston can step in the backfield. Keyshawn Waller, who got spot opportunities, probably the fastest of the 4. They'll slot him in there sometimes. So even if 1 or 2 of those guys go down, they still got guys they can plug and play behind that big O line of theirs.
Well, the crazy thing to me is
quarterback might be the big, he's got to take a big step forward this year for them to win the region, I think, too.
Just talking about the trenches, like the crazy thing to me is like you talk about, Glass and Reeves. One kid I watched last year who made a lot of great plays, I think it was against Lord Bogota, was Jahari Nicholson too. I mean, the kid can actually play too.
Nicholson,
so I was like,
yep.
I mean, you have a kid that's like getting up, I'm not going to say overshadowed, but when you talk about those other 2 guys, you still have Nicholson behind him. Like, that's just great depth to me.
He had 2 huge sacks against Magna Vista as well, Gregory. So, I mean, I think late in the game it was big too. But, Joe, I didn't want to cut you off, but, maybe you can speak to this as well. And it's kind of a 2-part question. And I can't remember what the tight end's name is it's being looked at by quite a few people. But how big is the tight end position going to be? And there's no shame in our game, and everybody knows that this is going to be, I can't even say 3 yards in a cloud of dust, because it's probably going to be more like 8 to 9 yards in a cloud of dust, because, I mean, there's no secret that the ball is going to go to 6 and 9. And I mean, that's just the way it is. But how important is that guy coming off that, maybe just a slant off the end? And then my second question is on the defensive side, why do we have so much problem, or why is it such an issue in stopping? And look, Salem's offense is that power T, whatever you want to call it. I know it's a kind of a wrinkle, but why do we have that problem stopping that? And I wouldn't say that last year when we played Jefferson Forest, it wasn't a whole lot of difference in their running game in that power T. But what's the secret to it, and why do we have so many issues in stopping it?
So the first question you're asking me about the tight end position?
Yes, sir.
Nash obviously has moved over, but he also split time a year ago. Tayshaun did with, they're going to kill me for not forgetting his name, Jackson Dietz, who's now at Hampton Sydney. He played quite a bit of tight end too. They used the tight end position a lot to block, right? They really like to do that. But having said that, like Nash caught an important touchdown pass in that game against Magna Vista. If you can just release the tight end, and they have to honor the tight end position as a receiver, that alone will back the linebackers off a little bit, especially if you go play action a little bit. I'd like to see GW do a little bit more of that, actually. If you can run the ball like they can run the ball, and then you pull it out of the belly of Lipscomb or Brandon and then just dump it over the top of the tight end. Those linebackers are in a bad situation in that case. Same scenario, what I'd like to do, I think they don't have to push the ball down the field vertically as much as people might think they need to, but I didn't see as much. I'd like to see them more step back screens wide. You can do a thing too where, like, you go twins, run both the outside receivers on slants, right? Squeeze down the defense and let the back flare out of the backfield. If you can dump it off to Lipscomb in the open field and he's got one-on-one with a linebacker, I'll take that all day long. That's an extension. That's a part of the passing game I'd like to see them get back to. Play action with the tight end. Now, they also added their receiving group is nothing to slouch at, and they added people to that group. So there are targets out there, and there's big ones. J.C. Chaney, who is the all-time record holder for points scored for GW basketball. His son, J.J. Chaney, just transferred back from Hargrave. He's 6'6" and will be playing receiver out there for GW. Wow. Josiah Saunders, 6'3", 6'4" on the other side. But they've got depth at that position. if they can figure out how to spread the field a little bit and get it to them. So yeah, teams are going to stack the box on GW because they don't have a choice. If you don't, they're going to man up on you. You're going to be in big trouble. But the second part of that question you asked, or you referenced Salem, for example. GW has really struggled to get past Salem in the playoffs. I thought there's some similarities, not necessarily schematically, but in terms of size and the way they play between JF and Salem. This is an area that I think causes GW issues. And just my opinion, and everybody can say what they want to about it. When you get against those teams, now you're not playing against 290-pounders on the other side. You're not playing against 300-pound kids. Those kind of kids, GW is going to match up really well. They hit the weight room extremely hard. They're a very strong unit. But what happens, I think, against Salem, against JF to some degree as well, you got 265-pound kids playing across from them, and they're just quicker.
Mm-hmm.
They can disrupt the GW offense better than bigger teams can because they just are quicker off the ball. And that's the trade-off, I think. Salem runs a pro set that you just don't really see. It's kind of like what everybody used to do back in the 80s kind of thing, two backs, tight end, flanker, split end kind of thing. What they do, everybody knows what they're going to do, but they do it at such a high efficiency rate and so quickly that it's really hard to stop. When GW played them, 2 years ago in the playoffs, that really wasn't – it was a tight game. I thought GW could have backed off defensively a little bit. They brought everybody down the line of scrimmage, and the two big plays that changed that game were just they split the defense along the line. Everybody's in the box, nobody on the back end, and the kid's just running free for a touchdown. But I think that's the biggest thing I would argue that GW has to counter when it comes to JF and it comes to Salem both in the playoffs is they've got to handle the quickness of the defensive fronts in particular against their big line because they can get beat into the gaps, and that becomes pretty disruptive, especially if you're relying on like 3 or 4 yards at a time. If you're only getting 3 or 4 yards at a shot against really good teams, that's great, but you got to sustain now like a 12, 13 play drive to finish those off. And if they disrupt one and now you're playing 3rd and 12 because they cut a guy down in the backfield, that's a whole different situation. So teams that look like GW, I don't think they're going to have any problems with. Teams that are a little bit smaller, a little bit faster, but still very physical. And when you look at that JF team, man, everybody tackles.
Yeah.
There were times where you thought, Lipscomb or Brandon's going to get out, and they would get past the front. But then, linebackers, safeties are just flying down in there to make sure they get the guy on the ground and limit big plays. And they didn't give up any really big plays in that game.
How important would it be to be multi-dimensional as far as GW goes? I mean, I know they can run the ball, but how about slinging the ball around a little bit?
I've watched some of their 7-on-7s. They look good, but you know what 7-on-7s are, right? It's T-shirts and shorts, and it's hard to say how it's going to pan out. Like I said, they got a deep receiver room, so there are targets there. I know they ran some last year. I wouldn't be surprised if they ran more Wildcat again this year with Lipscomb. People forget Lipscomb was actually a quarterback at Dan River a few years back before he came over to GW and became just a running back. He can throw the ball a little bit if they want to do that. So they could wildcat him and make that an option. I think Covington has made a step forward. Octavian, he's the quarterback returning from last year. He's a senior this year. His arm strength's a little better, which is good. So they can at least threaten the back end of the defense, I think. But I think their bread and butter is going to be, screens, short, mid-range, mesh routes, that kind of thing to and try to make easy throws. Maybe they have to move the pocket a little bit, get Covington out of the Covington's not a tiny dude, but if you're standing behind guys that are 6'5" across the board there, it's going to be hard to see who you're trying to get the ball to. Maybe roll the pocket a little bit, give him a little bit more opportunity that way, but it's going to be necessary, right? You can't just run over really good teams late in the playoffs if they're stacking the box, because it does become a numbers game at some point, right? They just got more guys in there than you can block. So they have to keep them honest by throwing it a little bit. But that's why I think, if you get back to some jailbreak, step back screens, tunnel screens, back out of the backfield type stuff, shallow crosses, mesh routes, that kind of thing, if they can complete those at a high percentage, they'd be really dangerous. It'd be hard to stop.
I wanted to go ahead, Deb.
I was just going to ask what EJ was asking down there at the bottom. Does the Piedmont have the same physicality as 4D to prepare them for the playoffs or for a playoff run? Or does that their out of conference schedule or out of district schedule with Reedsville, Amherst, Glass? Does that prepare them?
I was at that, Devin, too. Like, I mean, obviously they're playing the same schedule as last year, but they're just flipping it. But like, you get Reedsville, you go to Glass, you go to Lower Botetourt, you go to Bassett, go to Magna Vista. So it seems like this year maybe puts a little bit more pressure on them.
William Fleming in there as well.
William Fleming at home. So it seems like this year they're going to be a little bit more battle tested, going on the road and playing some difficult teams. So I hope that
I think it's something that's underrated in terms of the way the GW schedules. People don't I mean, even their scrimmage tomorrow, they scrimmage Heritage tomorrow. Yep. And I was at that scrimmage a year ago. That was maybe the most physical game, if you want to call it that, I saw all year. Was a scrimmage between GW and Heritage to start the season. Now, how much of it was one versus ones? You know, you're swapping kids and you're trying out new things. Some kids know what to do. Some kids don't know what to do. So I get there's some of that going on. But physicality-wise, GW is going to scrimmage Heritage tomorrow. I'll be able to see that film after it's posted on Huddle, but you'll know a bit more about that. I know Heritage lost some guys at graduation, but they're extremely well coached, hard-nosed team. They're going to be right there in the mix again. You'll know more about it after they scrimmage tomorrow to some degree. So you got that scrimmage. They're going to get spread out in the benefit game again with Gretna. So they'll play the benefit game against Gretna. And then Reedsville, Reedsville just won his 24th state title, not across all sports. Their 24th state title in North Carolina just in football.
Gosh, that's crazy.
So you're going to, once again, I watched that game over again. And, first of all, Reedsville had two kids on the field that we couldn't handle, to be honest. Granted, the Harrison kid that went to Oregon, huge, athletic. He's just the size of him was hard to deal with even when we had him covered. But the Neal kid, Deontay Neal, was just clearly it was like playing Bo Jackson the old Tecmo Bowl, right? It was just once he got hold of the ball, he's just moving that much faster than everybody else on the field. And he was really hard. And they just had the legacy there at Reedsville that they're going to be ready to go. When I watched that game a year ago, that was clearly a team headed to the state championship game in Reedsville and a brand new quarterback and a team with GW that had high expectations, but quite frankly, didn't play as fast as Reedsville played, didn't play as together as Reedsville played, and didn't even play as physical as Reedsville played against them a year ago. But if you look back at the history of it, there's only like one game in the win-loss column that separates GW and Reedsville in the history of that game. So even with all their 24 state titles, normally the GW Reedsville game is a pretty tight game. I expect there'll be a big crowd at GW for that one because there'll be D1 kids all over the field on both sides.
Well,
but you're right.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you something. And you just said something that the reason why I got to get this out of my head now, why you just said it. You just said you expect a big crowd for that game.
Here we go.
Yeah,
bigger.
I get on a soapbox every week because when we start talking about GW, we're at Magna Vista. We're playing Magna Vista for the Piedmont District title. We're playing JF for the regional title. There was more people on the visiting side of the football stadium than there was on our side, and it just disgusts me because I can remember the day when you could not put another fanny in the seats over there on the concrete side, and the hill was filled. What's going on? Why can't what's the problem?
I think we actually talked about this question last year a little bit as well. I think, and it's not just about Danville, right? This is not just a Danville only thing. We have moved into a time in certain areas and places where it's no longer a community thing. The reason why I think GW has always been known as GW-Danville was because George Witt also used to be called GW for a time. And so to distinguish them in the whatever the stats and everything was always GW-Danville. But it also carried with it the idea the entire city would come out to root. It was their team. It was the city's team. It wasn't just the alumni's team or the parents' team. It was the city's team. And that day, unfortunately, I think has gone away. They're not the community in a large way doesn't see them that way. I don't think. I think we've moved into a time of individualism, NIL transfers. We touched on a little bit of GW's transfers. There might be as many as 7 or 8 guys that transferred to GW this year. And I don't point that out for GW. That's happening in a lot of places. There's just more of a focus on recruitment. NIL, individual achievement. And I get it. You want to find a way to pay for school and maximize your talents. And I understand that. But there's just not as much as like, hey, this is our team. It's not like going out, to Southwest Virginia and like, this is our team. It's not there. And that's true when you look at like Glass. I've seen GW play Glass last couple of years, and Glass used to pack the visitor side at GW. There'd be a guy running with, granted, I'm a GW alum, with an obnoxious Glass flag up and down the track. The band is there. But it made a tremendous atmosphere, and it made the rivalry. Every time including in the playoffs when they played Glass at home, Glass hadn't brought, it'd been the parents over there, and that's been about it. So you see that in other places. It's not just a Danville thing. The smaller the town is, the more likely they are to still kind of treat the team as, hey, this is our team kind of thing. I just don't see that as much. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't some really dedicated fans in the stands at JT Christopher Stadium on Friday night. There absolutely are. And I see some guys that have been there, I know, since probably before I was born. They're still sitting in the stands over there, which is awesome to see. But it's just not a widespread thing anymore in the community, which is tough. When you're playing big games against Magna Vista or a regional title game that puts you in the Final Four in the state, if you win it, you would expect a big crowd. I was actually came across the 94 state championship game we played in. My brother and I were coaching with the team at that point, and my youngest son was watching. He's like, he'd never seen the GW Stadium full because that was a home game. It was back when you could play a higher seed had hosted the state championship game. Yep. And there were people on the hill. There were people down by the fence. The stadium was completely packed out. And he's like, oh, that's what it looks like. And I'm like, yeah. So I think the further you get away from that, the harder it is to recreate it as well, right? Because the next generation just doesn't know. They're like, they just don't. And that includes parents, not just players. It's like, hey, we just haven't been here for that. We don't know what it used to be.
That's my pet peeve. And, I know we don't have a skydiver flying in and or parachuter coming in like Devin saw last year at JF. And, over at LCA where the kids are just fanatics about their team. And, they're over there in the tunnel waiting for them to run out and all this kind of stuff. But I challenge everybody tonight. I mean, our kids come out to Sandman and they run through the helmet. They shoot the smoke. It's like being at Miami, the Hurricanes when they used to do the smoke out there on the field and run out there. So it's kind of a combo of Hurricane / Virginia Tech. And it's awesome. If you want to leave after they run on the field, go ahead and do that. But just at least get to the stands and be there for the kids, man. Yeah. it means so much.
I think sometimes fans don't necessarily realize what an impact they have on the game. And my nephew was helping me. He's a Chatham grad, and he was helping me with a game about 2 years ago. His first game in, he'd been to GW games as a kid, but they were always out back playing behind the stadium, playing pickup ball. Yeah. So he had to be on the sidelines with me, and it was a big play, and the crowd just let out this massive roar as the kid was running down the field. And it hit him like a wave from behind. He's like, "Is that what it sounds like down here?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what it sounds like when there's a crowd in the stands and it's a big play or something." But yeah, and the kids thrive on that, right? It just when you look back at the JF game, I don't want to harp on that regional title game too much, but they ran the opening kickoff back for a touchdown in that game, and you just heard the air. The air just completely came out, and they never got the mojo of the crowd into it after that point. It wasn't that the fans weren't cheering, but it just didn't have the same energy. So yeah, you need the fans to bring that energy for sure. And the kids deserve it. The kids need it. When you get Magna Vista in the house and they got to go down the hole this year, you get in the hole, they're going to bring the energy down there. So you better try to match that best you can.
Well, I have a question for all y'all real quick.
Well, I was going to say, I know I beat this dead horse, but it's been to the point where we've been to these games. I could have bought everybody in the stands a hot dog. I wanted to get to where there's 10,000 people in the stadium and I can't afford to buy a hot dog for everybody. That's all I want. Thank y'all. Y'all go ahead, Greg.
You have $20,000. You can do it.
That's our budget for District 2 now. Yeah.
No, my question for y'all, maybe for the fans too, who advances further? Magna Vista in Class 3 or GW in Class 4?
Ooh. Yeah, that's a tough one, right?
I think I have my answer.
You didn't buy me a hot dog. when I mentioned this a little bit earlier, Magna Vista, yeah, they lost a ton of production, right? Especially running the ball. Simeon Moore and Ethan Dukes were 90+% of their run production a year ago. They lost a couple key receivers. Tyler Martin was mentioned earlier, the older Scott kid, but Asante Scott is the younger Scott. He was actually he led the team. He actually led the district in receptions, touchdown receptions. He had 16 of them. The Hunter Willard kid, that's probably, I think, going to be the starting quarterback for Magna Vista this year. Really athletic, talented kid. He's physical, real good baseball player as well. He'll be ready. I believe he'll be ready. So I think Magna Vista, in a sense, will reload, but I think they've got some pretty big gaps to fill there. I would probably give GW a little bit of an edge. You talk about how far can you go in 4 versus how far can Magna Vista go in 3. To your point earlier, though, I do think at least within the region, 4 is going to be hard. 4D is going to be tougher than 3. Is that 3D for Magna Vista? I think it'll be a little tougher than 3D will be to get through the regional part of it anyway. But like I said earlier, GW is older. They're bigger. They got more depth. They got everything they need to win a regional championship. And unfortunately, that hasn't been. I was looking back through that. That hasn't been since the 96 season when they went to the state championship game. And if not for a mud bog, I think they beat Centerville for that championship. But they haven't won a regional title since, I think, 96. I could be getting that wrong. Somebody can correct me, but I was trying to look back through. Now, they've obviously reached a regional title game a number of times, but just can't get past Salem there or JF. I think they're very capable of it. Don't get me wrong. But, yeah, Joe, I would give GW a little bit of an edge there.
Let me ask you this in another form or fashion. And I'm kind of looking at it from a different standpoint. Is there pressure? Is the pressure going to mount this year? Because I'm kind of in the fold that, it might be this is state championship or bust for GW this year. I mean, is there going to be a mounting pressure as the season goes on, knowing full well that this team is loaded? I mean, absolutely loaded at the skill positions, and you're not going to see this in next year. You're not going to see it at the year after. I mean, I know they're going to bring in kids, don't get me wrong, but for them to be this loaded, is there pressure going to build as the season goes on for them to make that championship run? There's some people in the stands that will tell you that, right? I have those conversations. You know how it is, Greg. When you go to games, sometimes you're the neutral third party that everybody wants to talk to, right? Yep. I think I don't know if I'd push it out that far. I think a regional championship, yeah, I mean, for sure, which puts you into the Final Four, right? If you get in the Final Four, you're playing for a spot in the state title game. So, to me, I would say, hey, I don't know. I don't want to speak out of turn for those guys. Are they capable? Could they? I think it comes down to them and JF for the regional championship. And if they don't win it, is it a bust? And I don't think it's a bust. Depends on how that goes. Now, if you get the regional title game and get beat 40-6 or whatever, that's a little different conversation. But if you get into a regional title game or something like the Magna Vista Lake Taylor game a year ago, and it goes right down to the absolute wire against a really top tier team, and you don't win it, hey, I think you can still live with that. But yeah, I think it may be regional title or bust. But I don't know that. I mean, state titles are so hard to get. Mm-hmm. When you get into the Final Four there, just to make it into a state title game. Granted, like to your point earlier, some regions are more stacked than others. But you still got to, if you're in a stacked region, maybe there's a state caliber team you got to come through, but you got through them like a Varina or whatever, and they're going to be waiting for you in the semifinals when you get there. But yeah, I would they've got to get over that regional championship hump. Just got to find a way. I don't care if it's ugly. I don't care if it comes down to a special teams play or the last play of the game. It doesn't matter how you get it. You got to break that mojo somehow. And they're capable of it, very, very much so. But yeah, you're going to have to go through probably Jefferson Forest to get that one. Not dismissing any other teams in the region in 4D, but I think those two are clearly the top two. They both return almost everybody, and they both should be there again. I would imagine. And of course, Magna Vista is going to have something to say about it. I need to give a shout out real quick to my Tunstall Trojans as well.
I know they've had a rough stretch. Trust me. They've got an older group this year. There's some talent in that mix. Kind of like Dan River a little bit. Can you match up in the tackle box against better, bigger, more physical teams? They've got, at the mid levels and the skill sets, I think pretty good. Seamus Ryan will be back at quarterback. I think he broke his collarbone, but I know he got injured and missed the back half of the season there a year ago. He's back. He's exceptionally quick, by the way. People don't realize how fast he is. He's an outfielder on the. Yeah. He can, if he's healthy and plays the whole year, I think that changes the dynamics of Tunstall. I think they're going to win some games. I know that Kirkland Brown, the head coach, he and I were talking about, he's like, I'm tired of people telling me, hey, you guys are doing a good job. And they are. They do a phenomenal job. They want to win some games, and they were close, I think they're going to surprise some people how much better I think they are. But how that translates to wins, losses, I can't say. Aiden Totten over there, though, is probably one of the best players in Southside, period. Absolutely. He plays both ways for Tunstall. He's like 6'4", 205, plays DB.
Runs like a deer.
And plays angry. He might be one. Him and Stanford Lipscomb might be the two angriest players in Southside. Both his parents were scholarship players, athletes at Marshall. And he's probably going to put on another 15, 20 pounds if he decides to play at the next level. He'll be 6'4", 225, 230 playing receiver. He's a load. He's tough to handle, but I think Tunstall's going to take a step forward. How far forward? That's a big question mark. Halifax again is a big question mark. Mecklenburg to me is the biggest head scratcher in the Piedmont. For me, I can't answer the question. 2 years ago, I looked out there at film before they played GW, and they were huge. They had athletes. They were big up front, and it's just not translating to wins for some reason. And I don't know if that's that whole mentality theory or what it is. You got to believe that you're going to win those games, or you're going to compete with the Magna Vistas and GW. But some years I look over there, man, I'm like, they got skilled kids. They got 300-pounders. They got what they need to win these games, and it just doesn't seem to pan out. We'll see. Maybe they turn something around in Baskerville as well. That'd be pretty cool to see.
And Kirkland Brown is one of the nicest guys you will ever meet in your life. Superb coach. And if anybody deserves some wins, that guy really, truly does. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'll go ahead and do it though. But it seems like when I show up at the Tunstall games, they win. I'm just kind of he's won 2 games when I've been there, so I just want to let you know. I think
they open as usual with Dan River. So I think to both the Dogwood question and where Tunstall might be, you're going to get a pretty good answer that opening night with those two. Again, that was a game a year ago that Tunstall probably should have finished off and won. It just felt like they ran out of gas in the fourth quarter of that game. And like I said, Dan River's got athletes all over the place. And when Dan River was up against the wall, they just found another gear that Tunstall didn't have and pulled that one out. So, but I think Tunstall and Dan River, that's going to be a really fun game to watch on the first Friday night for sure. Both teams need that win, right? They both need to open with a win.
They really do.
I'm going to say something here, and this might be controversial, and I don't mean to be like,
Oh, no. Not Gregory.
So Joe kind of talked about this a little bit. Tunstall possibly moving to the Dogwood next year, going down to 2. Doesn't leave the Piedmont with 5 teams, right? You'll have Mecklenburg, Halifax, Bassett, Magna Vista, and GW. At what point does GW maybe try to talk to another district, like a Seminole or a Blue Ridge, River Ridge, to maybe play against more talent, kind of prep them for more playoff runs and whatnot, like they did it back in the past?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you try to have those kind of conversations, you got to talk to all the schools in that district as well as whether they want to, allow for something like that. I don't think it's necessary for the reasons. I think, Devin was touching on it earlier too. If you look at GW's non-district schedule, you can say what you want about Amherst and EC Glass, but those are rivalry games.
Oh, yeah.
And people play you different and harder in rivalry games than they do any other time of the year. That GW Glass game last year was at 17-13 or something like that.
Yep.
And even though they controlled the game against Amherst, if you go back and look at that film, it wasn't a blowout game. Amherst is going to play you hard as well. So even those two games, you're going to play hard. And then you got to play Botetourt, Fleming, and Reidsville on top of the two rivalry games. I think for now, geographics are obviously difficult. Danville's right down the bottom in the state. You're right on the North Carolina line. It's difficult. It's always been difficult to get a full slate of games. Prior to Reidsville, though, they had Dinwiddie in Reidsville's spot. You're talking about a state caliber team in Dinwiddie. So they've not shied away from that. And I think they got into that a number of years ago because they knew that what you're asking is like, for us to win a regional title, get into the Final Four and have a shot at the state title, we've got to play tough competition. We can't just cruise through an easy schedule. But so their schedule, is hard. But when you get into the district, and again, I'm not knocking Tunstall, Halifax, and Mecklenburg or Bassett, but GW should be heavy favorites in all of those games. There'll be a favorite against Magna Vista, maybe not a heavy favorite. It'll probably be a tight game, I suspect. But they'd probably be slight favorites against Magna Vista as well. But Reidsville will be favorite on opening night. Now, my GW buds won't probably agree with that, but if you're coming off a 24 state title and you handle business against GW a year ago, and they just reload every year. I actually coached a kid that's a quarterback down in Reidsville when he was in Pop Warner in Durham, and a real dedicated kid to his craft, Tyson Broadway. They find a way next man up, not just next man up to have somebody fill a spot, next man up that's going to produce and give them a chance to win another championship. And so that one will be really interesting. I want to see GW that opening night against Reidsville match Reidsville's speed and intensity. They're going to have to do that to have a shot to win that game. But, man, if GW gets off the mat with a win against Reidsville to start the season, I wouldn't want to play them after that, to be honest. That would be – their confidence would match their talent pool, and then that would be a dangerous combo for the balance of the regular season. I think they're right where they need to be. They're picking up tough opponents and keeping rivalry games outside the district. Can't always like I said, it's always better when the Mecklenburgs and the Halifax and the Tunstals and Bassetts are all doing really well. It's always better for everybody. Yep. And it just hasn't been the case here the last number of years. It's been real top heavy in the Piedmont, obviously, with the Warriors and the Eagles there. So, but yeah, should be fun. Definitely.
Do you think that changed from the Western Valley to the Piedmont, kind of where that attendance maybe have dropped starting then? I mean, facing those traditional rivals and now you're playing against new teams that maybe you don't really identify with.
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough to figure out, right? And when you break a rivalry pattern kind of thing, it's always like GW Glass to me doesn't feel like the rivalry that it used to be. It's just not, both in terms of attendance by the fans and just the energy in the game and how two teams view each other. There's not a lot of smack talking going on in those games anymore. When Greg and I came through, GW, that used to be like they'd paint a car out there and let you go take a sledgehammer to it the week of the Glass game. So that's not, once you break those patterns, you don't see that out in Southwest Virginia, for example, right? Those Union versus Pickatine games, or those teams, those Friday nights are just intense, right? And GW lacks that. You get it with Magna Vista. I will say that. That's pretty intense, about where it ought to be. It's pretty intense. But other than that, I think the Reidsville matchup to start the year should be pretty intense, especially after the way it went a year ago. I think GW's got something to prove. Again, I don't think it's a make or break game, meaning if they lose it, it's not just like last year, it's not the end of the if you lose it though, I'd like you to lose a close one. Yeah, Big G. Yeah, I think that would matter. I mean, moral victories are what they are, but if you play a state championship caliber team to the wire and you don't come out with a win, no big deal. Line it up next week. You got 9 more games to go for the regular season. You'll be in good shape. Got a great test. They're going to scrimmage Heritage again. They're going to scrimmage Gretna. So they're going to see 2 very different teams that are playoff caliber teams in the preseason as well. They'll be ready to go. And speaking of Gretna, I don't mean to hop back to the Dogwood. They're going to know what they got early as well. They're going to play Cave Spring and Franklin County in scrimmages. Then they're going to turn around and play GW in a scrimmage. Then they're going to open with Jefferson Forest. Yeah, you talking about a small Class 2 team playing tough opponents before they even really get rolling into their schedule. By the time week 2 rolls around, you're going to know, Gretna holds up well across that. You're going to be like, whoa, they're a lot better than I realized they'd be. But that's a real tough way to get your season off to start. And I don't think, I might be wrong on this, but I think I heard that they won't be continuing JF after this year. So, yeah.
Guys, any other question for Joe in the Piedmont?
No, but I needed to bring a couple things to the forefront before we take off, because I know Joe's been dying here. Jeff Hardy just lost the world title belt on TNA Impact. I just want to let y'all know that. And the best news of all, Red Sox avoided the sweep. They win 7-0 over the Blue Jays. Just want to let you know that too. I was going to wait till next week to make my bold prediction about opening night at GW in Reedsville.
Oh,
I can't help. I'm going to go ahead and let it out the bag. It's GW 28, Reedsville 24.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm calling shot now.
This is one of those things where GW, I mean, y'all, we've talked about it. They're loaded this year, and they're expecting to compete in this game. I just hope whatever happens, if they were to lose, not saying they will, but if they are, I hope it doesn't affect their confidence, because last year you saw they did not have the game they wanted in game 1 and still made a late run. So we'll see.
Look at Ray's like giving you the big eyes emojis over there. Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. It's really going to be tough. I don't think it's a good matchup in terms of what Reedsville does versus what GW does. The way those two teams are designed and the way they play and the schemes that they run, I don't think it's a great matchup for GW. Doesn't mean they can't win that game. They absolutely can win that game, but they can't start slow like they did a year ago. If they start slow, I think they're going to be in big trouble. There's track athletes over there on the Rams side, and they'll make you pay if you don't play fast from the jump. And they're big. People don't realize how big Reedsville is. It's a Class 2 team in North Carolina, but if you look at them, they could easily roll into Virginia and play Class 4 without or even Class 5 with the talent and the size that they've got over there. So, and they believe
this is how we take,
right?
Yeah, this is how we take Reedsville out of play. I think I'm gonna have to give somebody the reward money right now. You just lay the first helmet on the first guy that gets the ball and just lay him out. I mean, just knock him out, take him out of the game right off the get-go, and we don't have no problem. Nobody's gonna want to touch the ball the rest of the night.
Yeah, I would say against lesser teams that might be the case, but there's a collective mentality that Reedsville carries that if you got our guy, we might be coming after your guy. And I'm not talking about dirty stuff, but I'm just talking about they're like, no, I'm not. If you punch us in the mouth, we're gonna punch you back. That's just the way the style of play goes. But yeah, no, it's going to be a great atmosphere. I think both that opener and the closer for GW. I'm not dismissing the middle of the season, but man, to open against Reedsville and finish again in the hole against Magna Vista, those are going to be real tremendous environments to be in for sure. I think even against Reedsville, same thing against JF. GW's got to play much more physical on the edges and the back end defensively. And they're going to have to throw the ball with some consistency against Reedsville or anybody else that matter at that caliber to win. But I know we dwelt on GW a lot. They are, to me, clearly the front runner in the Piedmont. But Magna Vista is Magna Vista, and that's a huge rivalry game. So even if you think GW's got the better roster this year versus last year, Magna Vista will come at them with everything they got, and it'll be a great atmosphere, a great game.
Well, Joe, we talked your ears off and asked you questions for almost 2 hours now. So do you have anything to add before we cut you off? Anything?
No, I mean, you guys, you know me, I'm a homer, not just in the sense of I went to GW and coached at GW, but I'm a homer when it comes to the South Side. Mm-hmm. So I'm rooting for Chatham to take a step forward and solidify that program there. There are some kids over there, A.J. Dotson, Aaron Riley on the line, Tyrese Cooper that plays linebacker and running back. There's still some kids, and there's a young group there that if they can keep them together and keep the program consistent, they're going to be better over the next few years. So rooting for those guys. I mentioned Dan River earlier. Love to see them take a big step forward this year inside the Dogwood. I think there's opportunity for that. Like I said, I don't think there's a dominant team in the Dogwood. But you're going to have to go through the three big boys there. Gretna, if Gretna gets the type of quarterback play that Coach Miller thinks he's going to get out of Fitzgerald, they're going to be right there as well. Like I said, Tunstall, I think Tunstall will be better. They're going to win some of those games that they couldn't finish off a year ago. I really believe that. Maybe Greg just needs to be there in Dry Fork to make sure that they get those wins, or go on the road, Greg. I don't know. Follow Tunstall around this year.
Yeah.
If you're the,
You're right.
the rabbit's foot there, but yeah, I think I'm rooting for everybody, even out into Henry County. Honestly, I'd love to see again. I hope Bassett does really well. I think Magna Vista will be really good again. I don't know about the other schools out there right now where they might sit. You know, hopefully Martinsville, even with all the late changeover there, can kind of start to find its footing a little bit there too. But yeah, man, we're going to root for every team in the South Side, unless of course they're playing the home team. And then I got to that's been the hardest thing the last few years, is like going to games and you're like, you want to wear the hat for the team you really want to root for, but you're like, I gotta kind of root for both. But it's worked out really well, man. I love getting out there into Ringgold and Dry Fork and Chatham, and even getting some Hargrave games in, going out there and rooting those guys on. There's nothing like small town high school football. Yep. It's just not. I mean, you can go to the bigger cities. You can go down to Raleigh and Charlotte and some of those, and yeah, they can be. I had a chance to coach in that when I coached at Jordan High School in Durham. But it's not the same as going to these small town games where the kids know each other and it's bragging rights, you know, at stake, true bragging rights. It's pretty cool stuff.
Well, Gregory, Devin, before we get off here, I just wanted to say just a word to Joe. Joe, I mean, I appreciate everything you do for the South Side, and, you know, just being at the games and talking with you, and then seeing you conduct your interview after the game. Everything is done on the professional level. Here I am sitting there talking to these guys with a phone in their face, and Joe's got a microphone and a camera. I mean, it is awesome. It's fun to watch. You know, I just sit back, and it's so many things I've learned, you know, by watching him do his thing. So I just want to let you know. And plus, you know, seeing your relationship with the kids is very, very prominent. So just wanted to let you know that, you know, you're very much noticed when you're out there as well. So thank you for everything that you do for the Southside kids.
Well, that's very kind of you, Greg. I appreciate that. You know, that's what it's all about. It's celebrating what these kids and these programs and these schools are putting out there every night, and making sure it becomes a vehicle to their life, really. I don't want to get on a soapbox with that, but, you know, the things that you take away from playing sports, whether you're a big-time athlete or not. Hey, I know we got to go, but I just realized, weren't you the sports editor for the Chatterbox at GW?
Wow, bringing it back.
1985, baby.
Right? All right. Yeah. You know who took over as a sports editor? Yeah, I did after you left.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Dang, it was
I didn't have
locker
what I was
room
doing, but, you know, I was there, you know, I had the title anyway, but
that's crazy.
Yeah. I just thought about that. I'm like, that was, because you graduated what year?
85.
85. Yeah, I graduated at 86. So yeah, next year.
Yep.
That's right.
Wow.
So,
and here we are.
He looks so much younger than I do, don't he?
Yeah, he does. What happened to you?
You look a year younger than me, Joe.
I was trying to throw a bone to the guys there just now to go, hey, this is how old he is, right? But now he did compliment me, so he didn't drag me back down into the age bracket. But yeah.
Oh man, no, I love it. It's been a fun time.
Hey, let me just close by reciprocating to you guys. You guys do an amazing job, and I hope people realize what it costs you to do. I'm not talking about just monetarily, but what it costs you time-wise, family-wise, everything, just to put this product out there. Not only put a product out there, but just you guys do a phenomenal job with it. And I hope people really rally around you and support you, whether that's sponsors or just, you know, people encouraging you along the way, because you do a great job.
I appreciate that, Joe. Appreciate it a lot.
Thank you, Joe.
These two just clown on me. So Joe, I can't thank you enough for all you did right there. But that's it. So the Piedmont and Dogwood districts this week. So we'll be back next week with the Lynchburg area. So we have Seminole. I think we're covering the Three Rivers. That's the only one we haven't covered yet, and then we'll get to Roanoke after that too. So Joe, can't thank you enough for coming on. It's been a great time. We'll have this on the audio tomorrow too. So if you want to go back and listen to yourself talk, listen to all of us talk about everything, we can do that too.
Well, hey, thanks guys for having me. It was a pleasure being on with you guys.
Thanks, Joe.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys
Appreciate
for
that.
watching too. We appreciate that too.
Yeah, man.